This is not something we anticipated. I'm not surprised by it, but it's not something we anticipated. But you would typically not run into this in a newer home that has been built up to code, right? This is not an issue that you would, but in these older homes, right, if they were cantilevered incorrectly, you're going to get that sag over time, or you're just going to end up having to deal with this as we're doing now, right?
Absolutely. What we end up with is, for some reason, cantilever was a difficult concept 100 years ago.
Yeah, right.
Because we've run into, at stairs, 2-directional cantilevers.
Right.
If you look at it theoretically, there's nothing that would support
Right.
the structure, and yet it still stands.
Yeah, and it's still there. It's still holding up. So that's what I've been waiting for right there. That is the permit that we've been waiting on. Yes. We're back in business. Let's get back to work. That's what we've been waiting on. Jerry, come here and grab this for me, right?
I got the golden ticket. Inspectors and everybody.
Yeah, I know. But she made a comment.
We're officially back in business.
Yep.
That right there is a big relief. We finally got our permit. It's up in the window. We're official. The guys are back in business right now. We're going to make up some lost time, which we lost a little bit because of this. We ran into some issues that were kind of unforeseen, but not a big surprise to me. A lot of things that we need to fix. Getting the architect involved, he actually shined a lot of light on some of the issues that we were facing with FEMA and some of the other requirements, and that's why it's so important. If you pick up a house, especially if you're near water like we are, you've got to check all the angles. You don't think you're just going to buy a house and you're good to go, especially if you plan on remodeling. If you plan on remodeling, you better check with your local inspector, go in and ask a lot of questions. Check with local architects, ask them a lot of questions. It's much easier to ask a lot of questions first and then deal with it later. But we are officially back in business. I spent about $2,400 just now at the building inspector's office with all the permits and all the changes that had to be made, but you know what? That's money well spent, because now we're good to go. We're going to call for inspections tomorrow, and we should be back on track now. So I'm really excited. We're back up and running. These are the plans that we needed from the architect. These are signed off now by the building inspector. They have to be presented to them. They have questions that go back to the architect. Everything's been answered now.
Right.
These are official. These are the plans we need. We have our official building permit. You cannot proceed without this, and I do not recommend that you try. Just trust me. He laughs, but trust me, if you do and you get caught, it's a huge problem. Not only are you going to be held up indefinitely, but you're going to have to pay a lot of fees to get back up and running, and plus you're going to be on the bad side, and you don't want that. So we are legit. Everything is done to code. Everything is done correctly. This will go up in the window, and we have our plans, so now we have something to work off of, and these have all been signed off on. So this is so important. This is what held us up for so long, but now we can rock and roll. The issue the guys are having right now is they've actually built their forms for the footers, and they put it in the area they cut out. You can see they cut this out with a concrete saw to fit the form. But what the issue is, this is all sand underneath. And this is the water table. So it keeps filling in. So every time they dig it out, it fills in. So we got to dig this deep enough and big enough that we can get enough water out so we can put our new footers in. So that's the issue they're having right now. But by putting these in and stepping on them like they are to embed them, it's helping to get some of this out. That way we're only digging out what we need to dig out, right? I mean, that's the issue we're having, right?
Yeah.
Is that, they just keep filling in. And you can see all of these we're having the same problem with. So it's not as easy as just putting the form there and filling it in. We're dealing with a lot of water. And the sub pump, broke?
Sub pump broke.
Okay, so we don't have a sub pump right now. So that's the other issue. We're on top of things. All right, so this is obviously important. You got guys running around in here. Right. Obviously, everything's exposed.
Right.
So putting the sheets down where you need them strategically,
right.
People can walk through, because obviously they got to be conscious of where they're walking.
Right.
Right. So now at this point, the substructure's done.
Yes.
So how many piers did we end up pouring down there?
About new footers, we poured like 13 new footers.
It didn't start out that way, did it?
No, it did not.
No, all right. So it went to 13.
Yeah, 13
right.
new footers.
Okay.
We've set about 16 new posts.
Wow, okay.
And have resupported all the beams and jacked the house up in some spots about 2.5 inches.
Using bottle jacks.
Bottle jacks,
Which
yeah.
again is one of those things that if somebody runs into that situation, run down to the automotive store,
Right.
get a bottle jack, and what's the capacity on one of those?
We've got 2 tons. We've got 12 ton and we've got 20 ton.
Oh, so that's more than that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I know on this side we ended up jacking it up how much?
2.5 inches.
I was off. I think the bet on there was 1.5 inches.
Yeah, we had a running total going. I don't think anybody was
I
that
said
far
1.5
off.
inches. I was a little off. I'm not shocked, but I was a little off.
Yeah.
All right, so at this point, substructure done. You guys did a great job. It's been passed. The
Right.
inspector came in,
Right.
passed that.
Yep.
All right, so now it's moving on. So you are almost ready for subfloor.
Just about, yeah.
Okay. And then after subfloor's in, we start working our way up.
Right. We get our subfloor going, and then we can start supporting the next floor and
Okay.
work our way up from there.
And I know from the latest set of plans, which was the modified ones, we have a lot more structural things to do upstairs as well.
Yeah, almost more on the second floor than we do the first floor.
And we wouldn't have known that if we wouldn't have stripped everything out.
That's right.
And that's one of those things we talked about. When you come into a flip like this, you might want to think to yourself, I'm going to leave the first floor or the second floor alone. I'm only going to focus on the first floor. It's a
Right.
good thing we did that because we saw a lot of issues that could have been a potential danger
Oh, yeah.
in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think that's good. So main thing is now you guys are ready because I want to get this done. I want to blow this out, right? So we can start moving up because
Right.
we're behind.
Crunch time.
It's crunch. Yeah, it's always crunch time, dude. But you feel confident with these guys that we can?
Oh, yeah. We got the A-team over here.
Yeah, we got the Motley Crew is what we got. This is when you really start to see things come together when the flooring goes down. In this case, porcelain tile. What I love about this is that looks like real driftwood. I've never seen a tile with so much detail before. When you look at it on the floor, when you walk into this place, that's what people think you have on the floor. It looks like real wood, in this case driftwood, which is a great look for a beach house. The advantage to this over hardwood is that this will wear really well. Let me start that again. The advantage to this over real hardwood, which is what we were originally going to use in here, is that this is going to wear so much better. This is porcelain. This is about as hard a surface as you can put down in your house. Now, start that again, check. The advantage to this over hardwood, which is what we were originally going to use in here, is that this is one of the hardest surfaces you can put down. But today's porcelain tile, as you can see, looks as real as it gets. The detail on this is incredible. But because it's a beach house, because you're going to have people coming in, traipsing in and out all the time with sand on their feet, the worst thing you can do for hardwood, it's like you're walking on sandpaper. So if you put real hardwood in here, maybe not even a year later, you'd be having to bring somebody in to refinish it. With this porcelain tile, you're never going to have that problem. You can have dogs, people, sand, cleans up real easy and wears really well. So excellent product. Now this is 8 inches by 48 inches. So, and that comes standard, that's the standard size. Now you can leave it that size, like this one here that Ryan has. This is the standard size. This is 8 inch by 48. Now you can leave them all that size and just do a random pattern with those, or you can do what we're doing, which is cutting these down. So we got 48, what are the sizes we have?
48.
This is a full length tile. This is the size the tile comes. This is 8 by 48. Now you can leave it this size and put them down that way and just offset the joints, or you can do what we're doing. It takes a little bit more time, but cut them in random lengths. So we've got 5 different lengths that we're cutting these in, just like a hardwood floor would be in random lengths. And we're going to do it that way. So that way when you look at the floor, you've got small ones, mediums, and long ones. That way it looks more like a random setting like hardwood would. Now the other thing you got to keep in mind when you're doing a large floor like this with a lot of tile is that because this floor isn't perfectly level, even though we level it up considerably from where it was, it's still not perfectly level. We've got a few minor humps here and there. When you're using a tile like this, which is really long, what you don't want is to get that teetering. So if I've got a hump right here and I put this down, it's going to teeter on it. What helps that is by using a bigger notch trowel. Like this is a 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch notch trowel. You can see how big that notch is. That gives you more mortar to work with. So that way when you press the center down, the mortar on the 2 ends will take up the difference in the height. So by using a bigger square notch, it gives you more mortar to work with, which gets rid of that teetering. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The other thing to keep in mind is to use a really good mortar. Now we're using a modified thin set with this porcelain, and that's what you want. You want everything in that mortar already, in that thin set. You just mix it with water and it's already modified. And you can see the way we're putting it down. So we're working in sections. And it's good to have 2 people laying tile, 2 people mixing tile, or It's good to have a couple people laying tile, a couple people mixing thin set, and another guy cutting. That way, you're never waiting on anything. Just yell to the guy that you need to cut, tell him what you need. That way, things keep moving. As you can see, we're moving pretty fast here, so it's looking really good, though. Let's talk about the exterior of your house, which is a really important part of your overall budget. Trust me, you don't want to spend all your money on the inside and forget about the outside, because the first thing people see when they walk up to the house is the exterior. So one thing to keep in mind is when you look at it, when you decide how you're going to paint the house, first off, you have to look at the overall condition of the siding. In this case, the siding is actually in pretty good shape, but on the downside, this is asbestos. This house, I believe, was built in the 1950s, and they stopped using asbestos in the mid to late 70s. So that's something you really have to look at if you buy a house that predates the late 70s. You might run into this. Now, there's two ways to deal with asbestos siding like this. Number one, you can bring a crew in, an abatement crew, and have it removed. Now, that's a tedious process, and it's a costly one. You got guys that come in, they wrap everything up, they dress in head-to-toe hazmat. It's a very dangerous product if you handle it. And when it's undisturbed, it's fine. In its solid state like this, it's fine. You can leave it up. The other way to deal with it is just to paint over it. Now, we were lucky in that it was in decent shape. There's a few minor repairs we have to make, but we can just paint right over it. They've already started to do that. You can see the new paint here. We'll just patch up a few of the areas and paint over it. The good thing about asbestos siding is it's very durable siding. So if you have it on your house and it's in decent shape, you're better off to just leave it and paint over it. There might be some repairs you got to make, but you can usually go online. You can find things that match this. They have composite materials now that will match this. So if you need to replace a little section, you can do that, or just Bondo it in and paint over it. That's going to save you a lot of money, but it's also going to give you the look that you want on the exterior of the house.